Here's a new chocolate baklava with a twist. I'm Chef Kyle from Kyle's Creations, here to make simple and healthy recipes for everyday living. If you're new now and you love to get creative with cooking, hit that subscribe button right now and ding my notification bell for my latest and tasty recipe. We're gonna make this unlike any other. We're gonna add some wonderful dates to it. We're gonna make a mixture with praline. So praline is essentially a mixture of ground up nuts with caramelized sugar. And we're gonna add that to my famous chocolate ganache. We're using dark chocolate here. First step. Let's kick off this chocolate baklava by melting some butter until clarified, then add a splash of extra virgin olive oil for those most crispy and flaky layers. While that's happening, toss some dates into hot water to make the most smooth and dreamy puree. Don't forget to toast your mixed nuts to unlock their delicious oils, and separately chop up that dark chocolate into heavenly bites. We're gonna clarify some butter. We're gonna take about 3/4 of a stick of butter, and to make this easier, we're gonna break this up into chunks. So it's gonna evenly clarify. So clarified butter basically means we're gonna separate the solids and remove the moisture from the butter. Melt the butter until the milk solids foam on the top. We're gonna use it to brush our phyllo dough. So it starts to clarify once the bubbles become smaller. The bubbles are still big because you're separating the water from the fat from the butter. But now you can add a higher temperature without burning the butter. So it's wonderful. It's essentially clarified butter or ghee. You can use it for sauteing, you can use it for desserts. There's many different applications you can use. I'm gonna shut that off. So we're just gonna strain that, and it's gonna save that golden liquid that has a lot of flavor in there. To that, I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. I have some wonderful dates here. They're already pitted, and we're gonna add some hot water to that. Let that soak for about 10 minutes. Now, we're gonna add some nuts to this. I have some mixed nuts here. Typically with baklava, they'll use pistachio. If you have a nut allergy or you don't like the taste of nuts, you could just omit it. Going in my pot on medium heat, and we're gonna toast this on a medium-low heat for about 5 to 8 minutes. While the nuts are cooling off, I'm going to chop up or break up my bittersweet chocolate into nice chunks. Chocolate, dark chocolate especially, has a lot of nutrients in there. So if you want to learn any more information about the ingredients that I use, like chocolate, dates, honey, all these wonderful ingredients, please click my WebMD links in the description box below. It's going in my bowl right now. Step 2, time to create chocolate ganache magic. Heat up some cream and infuse it with my secret warming spices. After a few minutes, pour this infused cream over the dark chocolate and give it a good mix. Voila! You got a delightful ginger coffee infused chocolate ganache. Let's not stop there. Now whip up some easy caramel with powdered sugar in a sauce pot. Then add those toasted nuts and coat them generously. And let that delicious caramelized nut creation cool off. So, about a cup of heavy cream is going in, and we're just gonna heat that up for a few minutes. Okay, you see bubbles start to form. It's definitely ready. You don't want to heat this up and boil it. And to that, I'm going to add some espresso powder, some freshly grated ginger. That would get out. And some vanilla extract. Of course, I can't forget my wonderful ground cinnamon. That's going in. And we're going to add some salt. Okay, you just mix that. And I'm going to cover that for about 4 minutes. Heat this up for about 1 minute so that the heavy cream is hot enough to melt the chocolate. And now I'm gonna pour it, and we're gonna strain out ground coffee and the fresh ginger. Chocolate ganache is really easy to make. There's so many different types. You can use this as a decoration for cakes, and especially with nuts, you can even make it a little bit crunchy now. If you don't like nuts or if you're allergic, you can always buy cookies, your favorite cookies, and use that for some crunchy texture. I'm gonna squeeze out all that excess wonderfully flavored heavy cream. Now I'm gonna mix everything together. Now we're gonna make the caramel, which is the base for our praline mixture. So, added some powdered sugar to there. I have my pot on medium heat. I'm not gonna stir it. I'm just gonna let this completely melt till the powdered sugar is completely dissolved. Now I'm gonna add my nuts. So going in, shut the heat off and coat them generously. And transfer the caramelized nuts to a parchment-lined baking tray. All right, just move it around so it can cool off fast. Step 3, zest things up with this honey ginger syrup. Meanwhile, blend those soaked dates into a velvety smooth paste. Then, chop up the cooled caramelized nuts into coarse crumbly goodness. Finally, mix the pureed dates and the crumbly praline mix into the infused dark chocolate ganache. Wow, what a flavor bomb. To make our honey ginger syrup, we're gonna add some distilled water and we're gonna go in with some honey. I'm actually gonna use this ginger honey syrup throughout the week, so I'm not using a lot for this baklava. I don't like it overly sweet, and I'm gonna add some fresh slices of ginger. Boil honey and ginger in water and let it simmer for 10 minutes until it becomes a smooth, pourable consistency like maple syrup. We're gonna shut that off and we're gonna infuse it with some ground cinnamon, some ground cardamom. That's gonna be wonderful. And optional, I'm gonna add some rose water. The juice of half a lime squeezed right in there. Just mix that together. I'm gonna let this steep for about 20-30 minutes while we work on everything else. I have my dates that are now soft. We're soaking in hot water. I'm just gonna remove any moisture because we're gonna add this to the ganache and I don't want any water to get in there. So you can chop this up, but we're just gonna use the food processor. It's my friend. All right, I'll blend that till it's smooth. Date paste back to the same bowl. My praline nut mixture has cooled off. You can see it's crunchy now, and we're gonna do this one piece at a time. So all right, so we're gonna grind this up now with the food processor. I don't wanna make this too fine, actually. I don't wanna make it into a paste. Just gonna spread it around, and we're gonna cool this off in the fridge for a few minutes. Chocolate ganache is looking nice and smooth. I'm gonna add our date mixture to that. And actually, you notice I didn't add any extra sugar to this. The only sugar is the caramelized sugar from the nuts. Remember, there's a soaking syrup that we're gonna add at the end, and this is just gonna add like a nice, velvety, smooth, very unique chocolate layer in between. It's gonna become a little thick at this point, more like a chunky consistency. All right, now I'm gonna add my praline mixture to that. Stir it around. Nice crunchy layer. So as I mentioned before, if you're allergic to nuts, don't use nuts. Use your favorite cookies that have no nuts in them. The regular way of making baklava is great, but this way we're gonna really kick it up a notch, and we're gonna add some other flavors to it that you've never seen before. Add one of my underrated ingredients, the signature ground coconut flakes. All right, just mix this together. So if you have guests over and you make this, ask them to see if they can taste if there's coconut in there or not. I'd be surprised if they could. Now we're gonna set that aside while we prepare our phyllo dough. Step 4, it's assembly time. Cut phyllo sheets to match your baking pan size. Layer each phyllo sheet with brushed clarified butter and olive oil mixture to create a crispy base. Add a luscious layer of date, praline, and infused dark chocolate ganache with 6 layers of phyllo dough in between, 2 layers of chocolatey goodness, then add another 8 layers of brushed phyllo dough on top. I have some pre-frozen phyllo dough. More than welcome to make your own phyllo, but it does take a lot of time. So for the ease of this recipe, we're using pre-made phyllo dough. And just make sure to thaw it the night before and read the instructions. Now we're gonna measure it and then we'll cut. There's about 18 layers in here, so we're gonna go for 4 more layers. You can use a slightly damp piece of paper towel to cover any unused phyllo dough, or you can use plastic wrap. Take my clarified butter with olive oil. Just gonna brush my baking pan. Add my sheets of phyllo dough. So the baklava is actually the original inspiration for the strudel. It has been said that the baklava actually came from the Assyrians during the 8th century, and then it traveled around the world. All right, so this is the 8th layer. And this is important because now we're gonna add chocolate date praline mixture. Just quickly brush it. I'm gonna start with a good amount. Roughly about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. And we're just gonna spread it around. Just brush it with the clarified butter. Add another 5 layers of brushed phyllo dough before adding a layer of chocolate. So after 6 layers, I'm gonna add more chocolate. Now spread this delicious chocolate ganache around. Now I'm gonna cover it. Just brush it with the clarified butter. All right, I'm gonna do the last 2 layers. So we did 8 layers, then we did 6 layers, and then another 8 layers. So in total, there's 22 layers of phyllo, and we did 2 layers of the chocolate ganache. You can freeze the other phyllo dough, use it for another time. But right now, I'm gonna cut this. We're gonna cut horizontally. I'm just using the tip of the knife, so it's square. It really doesn't matter how we cut this. All right, so we're just gonna do square slices. You can also do diagonal cuts, but for the purposes of this pan and the fact that we have a crunch layer, I'm gonna make this much easier and just do squares. Just gonna give a final brush of the butter. All right, and this is going in our oven at 350 degrees for about an hour. All right, I'm gonna pull out my chocolate and date baklava. Look at that. Looks wonderful. All right, remember that honey ginger syrup, and I'm just gonna brush the top. I'm not gonna add too much. I don't want this to be overly sugary, and there's plenty of chocolate in the middle. Bring it over here. All right, I'm gonna try one right now. Can't wait. All right, guys, I can't wait to try this. Let's see how it is. So we got 2 layers of chocolate. There's about 8 layers here, and just a hint of that ginger honey syrup. So it's not overly sweet, and we still got those crunchy layers. Hear that? Let's try a bite. Wow, guys, that is fantastic. Lovely, lasting chocolate and date flavor I taste at the end. There's a little bit of that nuttiness coming through between the mixed nuts and the caramelized sugar. It actually doesn't even stick to my teeth, which is perfect. I love this dessert because it's not overly sweet. Most baklavas have a ton of syrup or honey dripped over it. This just has a hint of it, so you just taste it at the top layer. It's a nice coating, and then you taste the wonderful layers of rich ganache that is mixed in with nuts and caramelized sugar and the dates. It adds a wonderful balance that is like sweet with very small hints of tang in there from the dates, and it all rounds out with the wonderful spices I added like ginger and cinnamon, and actually makes it very light, so you can have 1 or 2 of these and actually you're good. This is a wonderful dessert, especially if you're having friends, family over. You can get your kids involved to make this. Perfect for upcoming holidays. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And another 2 dishes that I want to plug in right now are one that I mentioned earlier, which was my spinacota. Definitely, guys, should check that out right now on your left-hand side. And on my right, I'm gonna give you guys a dessert. It is a ginger milk chocolate truffle. I have 3 different types of coatings with it. It's a fun, interactive dessert to make with kids. You can even use this ganache as a base instead of using the milk chocolate. So there's plenty of different options. You can even dip it in white chocolate. Have a blast with it. Stay tuned for my next episode, and take care.